I'm trying to, I'm going to say something at the beginning about it's okay if you're still angry and stuff like that. But we're going to try to give you tools to, once that has, to use that anger for something. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay. Are we live? Looks like we're live. I gotta play the stupid ad.
Why do I still get ads if I'm on Amazon Prime? I thought that was part of the Amazon Prime Twitch thing, is I don't get ads. Anyway.
Yeah, that changed a while ago. They still have the intro ads and stuff, but then it doesn't keep interrupting you.
Oh, well, that's a plus.
Yeah. Hopefully this is working.
We can all pray.
Well, because as has been unfortunately normal during the last couple of weeks, Twitch itself looks like the stream is freezing like a bastard. But it looks like all the audio is going through. And I'm plugged in directly to the router, so like...
Okay.
Okay. You can definitely be heard in the stream.
That's a plus.
To make sure I can be heard in the stream. Yeah, this is rough.
I thought next week we could talk about what the social contract is, what it means, and everything.
Mm-hmm. That'd be good.
And go through that. So. I doubt we're going to get much money, so I'll end up just giving like $20 or $40 to the whatever. Okay. But I'm trying. Gail Simone replied to a post that I was posting to somebody else about. He was talking. There was a video this guy posted who is a cleric, a young cleric that I'm friends with on Twitter, and he posted a video about making heating up water to make tea in the microwave. And it's like, yeah, Gail Simone has this whole thing about how people in England make heat up water in the microwave and use Lipton as their favorite tea brand. I was like, I don't know what her thing is against the English, and she's replied to me, it's like, they're evil. And like, well, you're not a person to pull. You're not a woman to pull punches. So now I know. So it's like, okay.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're live and everything's acceptable, I suppose. I can't. All right. I'm not going to be able to interact with the chat though. Okay. My Mac is just not. I'm not able to see our live stream in any kind of decently real time.
Yeah, I can't either. So I'll apologize once we go full live. I'll apologize about the not interacting with the chat, and they can hit us on Twitter if they have any questions. All right, you ready?
So I just find this very frustrating. I don't understand why our live broadcast, because it's doing it on my phone too.
Where it's stuttering?
Yeah, where it's just spinning and not, we're not coming through properly. Doesn't make any sense to me. I watch live streams. Like, I can watch other people's streams. And theirs are working.
Can you go no video? Would that help?
Not likely.
Okay.
Um. Hmm. It's got to be something with OBS. Well, whatever. We'll just go. We'll have audio backup, so there's that.
Okay. We'll just do what we did last week, and I'll post it like I did last week, so that'll be fine.
Okay.
All right. On the count of 3, 2, 1. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Matthew 5:6.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edwin Blake.
The duty of youth is to challenge corruption. Kurt Cobain. Let's talk about activism.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. And you can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow us. Also give us a review. That helps others find us. And as always, to help me tonight, Ember.
Hello there. I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9of12 and hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Heresy and Hearsay as a Patreon site. You can find it at patreon.com/Heresy and Hearsay. Visit there today and help support us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to help us keep making this humble show. You can also contribute with bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime.
So before we get into this show is going to be about activism. I wanted to say that I'm still angry. And as someone who is still angry, and not my typical "I'm always angry" quote that I like to use from the Avengers movie, but I'm genuinely like, I can't go 5 minutes without turning on YouTube and watching something that I watch and going, oh, I just want to explode again. But with that being said, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to be frustrated. What we want to do with this show tonight is, once you're able to get to a point where it's like, okay, I can't just sit here and be angry. I've got to do something. We want to give you some tools and some ideas on how you can join the fight. And not just the Black Lives Matter, but that's the big one right now, but any fight in general. If there is something that you're passionate about or something you're angry about that needs to be changed, these are some tips and tools to kind of help you get involved and get active. For any class, for those individuals who are not working or have more free time than others, and those who work 40 plus hours a week, this is for both of them. There's been a lot of, I do want to say this, there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that one of the reasons we have this strong push for opening up jobs and stuff like that is because it's hard for people to protest if they have to work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of like, yeah, we can't be on the streets all the time, but we can definitely still add pressure. And that's the important thing. One thing that I want to say, and September may disagree with me on, is like, I don't like change.org. I don't think it really does anything. I think it was a neat idea, but I think it's not. It's been co-opted with a lot of other stuff, and I don't think it's as useful as it could have been.
I think it's a good way for people to communicate ideas and feel like they're doing something. I mean, starting a petition and learning the format to do so that you can use it locally is not a useless thing.
True. And I think I think that's an important thing. One of the things that I would like to stress in this is like local, national stuff is important and everything else. But especially in the United States, now other countries are different. So for our international listeners, you know, your mileage may vary, but as far as the local how the United States is structured, it's structured very locally up. So affecting things on a local level changes things. It builds. That's one of the reasons why certain conservative groups focus on local elections, which we've discussed in the past,
Mm-hmm.
is because that trickles up. It does affect, because then you get those individuals who then can that are originally in school board that then can uh, run for city council, and then you know local representatives for state houses and state senates, and then so on and so forth. So that is something to keep in mind, is that local works both ways. Get involved on the local level with all this kind of stuff. There's an article that I did put up about um, if you're an older um, citizen in the United States, some ways to get active in politics. And there's been a lot. I was surprised to. I'll say that I was surprised to see how many older protesters were out doing protesting. Some of them were actually marching. Some of them were just being support protesters, giving out water, being at workstations, to help people who got pepper sprayed and stuff like that. But I was surprised at the numbers of older Americans out there, older white Americans, which, there's been this kind of boomer is racism or boomer is bad kind of situation. And I think just as many young people are out there taking to the streets as well. I think it's important to note them as well.
Well, a lot of people, folks like my parents' age, are out there right now, and these are folks that remember. I mean, I was born in 1968, so these are people that remember and were activists during the civil rights movement. And this protest in particular is in a similar vein. They're trying to make same changes that didn't get finished then. And they're experienced protesters, and it'd be incredibly valuable to have that kind of leadership of people who know, like, bring water, for instance.
Bring water to drink, because you may be out there a while, and it's starting to turn into summertime, and it's warm, so you need to hydrate.
And I'm not all that surprised. I saw a lot of it during the Red Day, the teachers demonstrations we had here in North Carolina. There was a lot of older Americans during those taking part, and being involved in politics in general. You're looking at a population where you have retirees. It is happily surprising to see a wider demographic of just skin colors showing up for these particular demonstrations. But political activism has been on the shoulder of our elderly for a long, long time. When I first got involved, I was shocked. I was in my mid-30s, and they were treating me like a whippersnapper, especially for the Democrats in this area. Everybody during the Reagan years switched from Democrat to Republican, and the parties changed a lot, and it was just a bunch of octogenarians that had been holding down the fort, keeping the party loosely organized.
Right.
When I showed up, they know it means something too.
Right.
They're not disillusioned that, like, you can't do shit, as a person in politics, and your vote doesn't matter, and everything that young people believe, because they haven't had, their spoon in the pot stirring it, and they don't realize. I never learned in school and a lot of things until I got involved, and it was like, wow, like, Local committees, you show up for a meeting once a month and you get actual political power. You're appointing people. That's a real thing that still exists. And that generation got involved when they were younger, and so they know that.
Right, and it's important to keep those kind of things in mind. For that is that, you know, we're talking a bit about political, but also, I mean, there, you know, you can do other things that aren't political. You know, I did post a thing about, from Sage about valuing older individuals in the LGBTQ community, and how it's important for them to be activists and how to speak out and how to, you know, do things as simple as host a table, you know, a sitting, or things like that. And I think it's important to realize that part of this is also conversations. Some of these conversations have to be done on the streets, but some of these conversations need to be done, you know, in a meeting hall or in a home. Um, Being able, because a lot of younger people have apartments and smaller homes, being able to say, hey, I have a place where you guys can meet and have a meeting once a month, and I'll be more than happy to host the place for you. That is a big deal. And you know, you may not be able to go out there with them, as a person, but even that kind of involvement is important. And I think it's important to understand that there's many kinds of activisms, and there's many kinds of roles in activism. And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to definitely show a light on is, and I think, because in the past there has been this kind of stigma, is like, oh, you're sitting behind your computer tweeting or whatever. But nowadays, especially in this last, you know, Black Lives Matter push, they're realizing how important keeping these tweets going and sharing information and passing information on is just as vital as being out on the streets. Or, you know, support by giving money and donations and everything else. And I think that's extremely important to also focus on, is that you don't have to be on the streets to be an activist. You don't have to be physically involved to be an activist. There's several other ways that you can be involved. And like I said, one of them is very simply, if you have a place that, you know, people can meet, that wouldn't have a meeting hall, you know, so that they could meet once a month, to plan what their next course of action is. You could help them either arrange that or have a place for them to start going.
So do you want to go through some of these other ways to be an activist?
I'm pulling that up now. My computer slow as Christmas. So I'm getting one at the end of the month. My car decided that it also wanted to blow up, so that has changed things a bit.
You need to get your phone away from your mic or whatever.
My phone is nowhere close to my microphone.
Okay, well, you're getting all kinds of noise. So I noticed at least one of these articles has calling your senators. That's something you can do from home or your cell or whatever. That does work. There are a lot of apps out there right now for writing letters to legislators that they're great because it makes it easy to do. You can just tap a few things and it'll send a letter on the topic you want to cover. I would advise that if you use those tools to make sure and change a line here and there, so that, because there's a person on the staff of these people that takes all the calls, takes all the letters, and they keep a tally. And that's what the rep looks at and responds to. If you send a form letter, you're going to get a form letter back. If you send a form letter and you personalize it here and there, it's enough to slip through and be counted as in the column of an individual calling or writing, rather than, oh, it was another one of those pushes is starting to happen because of the widespread use of these tools. So calling is always better. That's like a higher category for those staffers, of the importance of this is what your constituents are talking about and want you to address right now.
Right, and that's extremely important for that. Also, sign petitions. Like I said, I have a personal, it's a bias about change.org, and I think it's mostly because I see so many of them just cross across my email on a daily basis, and I'm like, there are some that I will just go ahead and sign. I know, like, there was one for Canada that I signed just recently because of the Ottawa High Court did something ridiculous, and I signed that one. But it's like, wow, that was just like, wow, okay, that was stupid. Yeah, but signing petitions, of course, voting is extremely important, and not just every 2 years, but every election, including primaries, because you can't get a lot of people complain about, well, there's not a candidate that I like, well, then go out to the primary and vote.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will get the candidate you like. You can't just wait for the presidential election or the senator election. I vote every 2 years, and the reason I vote every 2 years is because I live outside of the city limits, so I can't vote for the city, though they still affect me. But yeah, that's another story entirely. So, but I vote every 2 years, and I vote for the primary, and I vote for the general every year, every time there's an election. I think that's important. Donating money, finding charities. I remember when I was a teenager, the first charity I ever started donating to on a regular basis was Greenpeace. I felt that they were a little too nice, and I felt that they should have went after the seal clubbers with their own clubs. But that's just me. I'm just like, again, even as a 15-year-old boy, I was still a bit angry. So like,
The first
but
time I recall donating money was to PBS.
and that's also extremely important. Public broadcasting is extremely important. Finding new media that you like. I'm a big fan of my Majority Report. If you like them, if you like the Young Turks, yeah, I'm just throwing out a few names, but Jury.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Jury, throw him some money. In fact, throw him some money now. Because help him out, especially
That's
I think.
Justin Robert Young, for those of you not already in the community that knows who Jury is. He does a show called Politics, 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 and some other streams, but he has a free political newsletter you can get every day. Um,
eh,
he's really, really good guy.
and He lives in California, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he definitely needs all the money you can get right now.
Yeah.
Like, um,
A free way you can give money to the Black Lives Matter movement right now, if you're interested, is go to YouTube.
mhm.
And there are several streamers doing fundraisers for Black Lives Matter. So all the ad revenue from their pages is going to Black Lives Matter. So you can just go to YouTube, search for those fundraisers, and then watch some, or leave it on in the background when you're doing other stuff, or whatever, and that money will be funneled to Black Lives Matter.
Right. And if you do have a little bit of money, or if you have a free Amazon Prime thing sitting around, there are Twitch streamers that are doing Twitch streams to raise money for Black Lives Matter. I know that Take 20 just did one not a couple of days ago and raised about $3,000 for the NAACP legal fund.
And you know what? Not even simply this current protest, but
Mhm.
a lot of folks on Twitch are often doing all sorts of activist fundraisers. So,
Yeah, and keep that in mind when you're, when you have a little
vote
extra
with
money.
your dollars.
Yep, vote
I'm
for
big
yep.
on that.
I know right now times are a little difficult right now, but when you have a little extra money, and here's another thing: if you have on Facebook, if you're on Facebook and your birthday's coming up, and put up I'm sorry, put up a thing for a charity thing for your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I know you did one last year, correct? I think.
I don't know.
I
I'm always doing that stuff. I don't know.
I had a friend of mine. She did one this year for her birthday. She did one for because she's big into animals and stuff like that, and she did one for no kill shelter in her area. And everything, and raise a little bit of money to help them. And even if it's a couple of bucks, it helps them out. It helps them.
I really like this "Welcome to Protesting, Choose Your Class" thing that
Oh,
you shared.
That's from the Twitter thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the nerdy flavor of that.
For those who don't know, and I'll read it to you. Let me see if I can get this thing in there. That works well for me. It's for those who are D&D nerds or tabletop nerds in general, or RPG nerds in general. This is a little thing that you can that was posted up. It was by several people. I just picked this particular one because it was the closest. And it says, "Welcome to protesting. Choose your class. Fighter, march and demonstration. Tank, put your body between the vulnerable and the cops' attacks. Rogues, flood snitch lines with false reports. K-pop, face cam, etc. Healer, provide medical support and supplies to protester. Bard, spread the word and help members of other classes keep up their spirits and mental health. Chemists, provide food and needed supplies to communities that are targeted by the police and agitators. Wizard, use your technical skills / perform to help keep the lines of communications going and inform people. Support class, keep your allies strong by donating money and or time to bail funds, protest orgs, etc. No matter your skills and resources, there's a class for you to play and a role that you can feel. And I think that is extremely important. And I think that is because that's what actually kind of was the thing that got me thinking about this particular topic and wanting to discuss this more, is be like, yeah, I think we need to do this. I heard you posted about the last week tonight, and him talking about the police and everything. And one of the things that came up, and one of the things that is in this article here about 12 ways to be an activist without protesting is educate and lead. And some of the top sellers of right now on Amazon and Barnes and Noble are books about racism in America, and I think it's important that we keep that in mind as well. Is that we need to educate ourselves. I've mentioned this multiple times, and so have you, September, about the People's History of the United States of America, and how important of a book that is.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really good lists of books to educate yourself on the history of racism and the current state of it in America that have been being passed around. I'll try to include one in our notes.
I know one that I do plan on picking up is going to be the new Jim Crow. I've heard multiple good things about that it's an important read. And as someone who, though was not born in the South, does have a Southern heritage, it's important for me to see how that's changed and how that's not changed. Call out racial behaviors, or call out behaviors in general. It's calling out racist, but call out because something else happened this week that just caused everything else to explode, which was calling out transphobes. I'm not naming names. I'll let somebody else do that if they want to, but someone famous was basically being a transphobe on Twitter, and it just exploded on Twitter this week, and this is Pride Month, and it's a big deal. And so calling out those kind of bad behaviors, Miss Angelou talked about how she would not stay in a home where there was where a racist joke was allowed to hang in the air and not be called out on.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how it starts. That's how it gets into the system and gets into the bloodstream, is those kind of little bits here and little bits there.
Yeah, being acceptable.
Yeah,
is insidious.
Listen to people who are not you. I am, and this goes for people of color. This goes for any type of marginalized group. I am, and I said this in my sermon, and I am a cis